Usually when we look at like a masterpiece in a museum, we admire the brushstrokes, right?
Mhm.
We look at the colors, the lighting.
Yeah, you might even spend a few minutes thinking about the artist who actually stood in front of that canvas.
Exactly. Holding the palette, mixing those exact shades. And in our minds, there is a very clear, comfortable boundary there. There is the creator over here and the creation over there.
Right, because it's a logical separation. I mean, it is fundamentally how our human brains prefer to organize the entire world.
Mm.
Cause and effect.
Mm.
The potter and the clay.
But what if you were told that the artist didn't just paint the picture? What if the artist actually is the canvas
Oh, again.
and the paint and like the wooden frame holding it all together? What if the artist is the very light illuminating the gallery room? Suddenly that comfortable boundary doesn't just blur, it completely vanishes.
Which forces you to completely rewire how you define the origin of everything around you. I mean, you are no longer looking at an object that was made, you are looking at the maker disguised as an object. It is a total ground-up paradigm shift.
And that shift is exactly what we are exploring today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are tackling a truly monumental topic today, Chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, famously known as Vibhuti Yoga, or the Yoga of Divine Manifestations.
It's just a fascinating piece of text.
It really is. And before we jump in, a quick note to you, the listener. Our sources today are deeply rooted in Hindu theology and scripture. Our goal here is never to take a religious stance or endorse these specific viewpoints. Instead, we are impartially reporting on the content to help you understand the fascinating philosophical ideas and mental models contained in this original source material.
Exactly. We're looking at the architecture of the ideas.
Right. And to help you wrap your head around this, we've pulled from a wildly diverse stack of sources. We've got analytical PDFs breaking down the dense philosophy, insightful blog posts from the Radha Krishna Temple, some summarized Reddit threads from modern people trying to actually apply this, and translated transcripts of deep dive Sanskrit lectures.
It's a huge variety of perspectives.
Yeah, and our mission today is simple. We want to extract the core frameworks from all these sources. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding how these ancient thinkers proposed we actually shift our perception. How do you train your mind to see the infinite hidden right there within the everyday, finite world?
Well, to even begin understanding those mental models, we have to start at the absolute foundation of Chapter 10. The text makes a massive, uncompromising claim right out of the gate.
It doesn't hold back at all.
Not even a little. Krishna establishes the philosophical baseline by declaring that he is the origin of absolutely everything. All the gods, the great sages, the galaxies, it all stems from this single source.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sources use two very specific terms to explain how this creation process actually works, and it's quite different from Western philosophy. They describe the divine as both the nimitta cause and the upadana cause of creation.
Right, so the nimitta cause is the intelligent cause. If we go back to that idea of a craftsman, think of a carpenter deciding to build a dining table. The carpenter's brain, their intention, their skill, that is the intelligent force. But the upadana cause is the material cause. That is the oak wood itself.
Got it.
And in almost every human endeavor, those are two entirely different things. A carpenter is not made of oak. But here, the text insists the divine is both the intelligence and the material.
So it's like saying Shakespeare didn't just write the play as the intelligent creator, but he is actually the physical stage you are sitting in front of.
Yes.
He's the actors breathing the air, he's the wood of the floorboards, and like the ink on the script itself. He is both the architect and the bricks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, recognizing this dual cause, both intelligent and material, is the absolute first step in Vibhuti Yoga. The philosophy posits that everything you see, touch, and interact with in the universe is simply a modification of one underlying reality.
Right.
The classic analogy in the texts is gold. Gold can be melted and modified into various distinct ornaments. You can have a heavy ring, a delicate necklace, a chunky bracelet.
But it's all still just gold.
Exactly. They all look different, they serve different aesthetic purposes, but fundamentally they never stop being gold.
Or like the ocean and the waves. Right. The ocean modifies itself into countless unique waves. Some are massive tsunamis, some are just tiny ripples on the beach.
Beautiful example.
They crash differently, they look different, but they are entirely 100% the ocean.
Which brings us to a really fascinating point the text makes about the hierarchy of creation. It notes that even the most exalted, enlightened beings, the devas, which are the gods, and the rishis, the great sages, do not fully comprehend this ultimate origin.
Which sounds crazy at first. I mean, if they are the ultimate sages, why wouldn't they get it?
because they are merely products of it. Think about your wave analogy. A wave cannot suddenly turn around, look back, and comprehend the entirety of the vast, unfathomable ocean that birthed it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It is structurally impossible for the created modification to fully grasp the totality of the creator. Their perception is bound by their form, even if that form is a god or a sage.
But hold on, if we follow that logic all the way down, I mean, if the divine is the material cause of everything, if it's the gold making up all the ornaments, then that must logically include the negative parts of life too.
It absolutely does.
Because, it's very easy for us to sit here, look at a beautiful sunset or a newborn baby, and say, ah, yes, that's divine. It is a lot harder to say that about a disease or heartbreak or suffering.
Well, that brings us to the most paradoxical and perhaps the most psychologically demanding aspect of Vibhuti Yoga. It actively forces the seeker to embrace the dualities of existence. It does not let you cherry-pick only the pleasant things.
Yeah, I noticed this in the sources. Krishna claims to be the source of noble traits, right? Intellect, knowledge, nonviolence, truth, all the pristine things you would expect a divine figure to put on their resume.
Right, the good stuff.
But then, in the very same breath, the text explicitly states that fear, pain, and death all come from the exact same divine source. Death is actually described as the ultimate leveler that takes away everything.
The philosophy doesn't flinch away from the darker, terrifying aspects of reality.
And it gets incredibly specific, almost uncomfortably so. The text says that even the gambling of the deceitful is a manifestation of the divine.
Yes, that one always surprises people.
I mean, I have to be honest, reading that made me stop. Wait, gambling. I completely understand claiming the radiant sun or the highest mountain peak, but a rigged game of dice, like a swindler at a casino in Vegas. Why on earth would the ultimate divine reality claim that?
What's fascinating here is how fiercely integrated this worldview actually is. It absolutely refuses to separate God from the world. If there's only one source of the universe, you cannot create a secondary, separate source just to act as a scapegoat for the bad stuff.
Right, you can't just sweep the ugly, uncomfortable parts of the universe under some cosmic rug and pretend they came from a different department.
Precisely. In this framework, destruction and death are seen as deeply necessary precedents for new creation. Think about a seed in the ground. For a giant oak tree to be born, that little acorn must perish.
It has to be destroyed.
It has to crack open, break apart, and be destroyed. Its destruction is the very mechanism of creation. They are two sides of the exact same coin.
Okay, but what about the gambling?
Well, as for the gambling, it represents the reality that even in human deception, the underlying intelligence, the raw capacity to strategize, to calculate odds, to play the game, that cognitive power is fueled by the exact same universal consciousness.
Oh, I see.
The action itself might be deceitful, but the life force powering the brain of the swindler is divine.
So it's about separating the fundamental energy from the human moral judgment we place on it, which leads me to ask, what is the functional purpose of this? Because understanding this intellectually is one thing, but how does it help the person reading it?
It is highly functional for your mental health, actually. Understanding that both joyous and deeply painful experiences come from the exact same universal cause helps a person develop true equanimity.
The sources call that shamama, right?
Exactly, Shama. And a deep, unshakable acceptance, which is prasada pavana. If you believe a painful event comes from a random, cruel, disconnected universe, you resist it. You fight it and you suffer immensely.
You feel targeted.
Right. But if you view it as part of an integrated divine whole, your emotional friction drops. You don't necessarily enjoy the pain, but you accept its place in the vast fabric of reality.
Okay, so that's the theory. I can sit in my living room and nod along to the theory of the seed and the plant. But how does a seeker practically shift their stubborn human mind to actually see the world this way?
Well, the sources outline a progressive evolution of perception. You don't just wake up one day seeing the universe as a single entity. It starts with a stage called Ika Rupa.
Ika Rupa translating to worshiping the divine in one specific, finite form, like praying to a single idol in a temple, or focusing your meditation on a one specific deity or concept. It's localized, it has boundaries.
And those boundaries are necessary training wheels for the human mind. We need a focal point. But the ultimate goal of Vibhuti Yoga is to evolve from that single point, Ika Rupa, to Aneka Rupa.
Also referred to as Vishwarupa, right?
Yes, Vishwarupa.
Yeah.
Recognizing the entire universe in all its chaotic, infinite forms as the living manifestation of the divine.
And there is a story in our sources, pulled from the ancient Puranas, that perfectly illustrates this terrifying, awe-inspiring shift from the finite to the infinite. The story of the Vamana avatar.
Oh, it is arguably one of the most brilliant narrative metaphors for this concept.
So the story goes that there is this righteous, incredibly powerful Asura king named Mahabali. He becomes so dominant that he conquers all three worlds, Earth, the heavens, and the underworld. He is the undisputed ruler of everything.
He's at the absolute peak of power.
Right. And to restore the cosmic balance, Lord Vishnu incarnates. But he doesn't come down as a giant warrior with flaming weapons. He comes down as Vamana, a tiny, humble dwarf Brahmin boy carrying a wooden umbrella.
Such a stark contrast.
Completely. And Vamana approaches this terrifying King Bali and asks for a simple, almost laughable charity. Just 3 steps of land measured by his own tiny feet.
And Bali, who is sitting there proud of his vast, immeasurable empire, just laughs and agrees. I mean, it seems like the most insignificant request in the world.
But the very second Bali agrees, the illusion drops. Vamana suddenly expands into this massive, incomprehensible cosmic form called Trivikrama.
The scale of it is just hard to fathom.
With his first step, he covers the entire Earth. With his second step, he covers the heavens. He has swallowed the universe, and there is literally no physical space left for his third step.
So what does Bali do?
Well, Bali, realizing the sheer scale of who he is dealing with, bows down and offers his own head for the third step, showing ultimate, complete surrender.
It's a striking, vivid image of scale.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because thinking about this today, the best analogy I could come up with is a zip file on your computer.
A zip file.
Yeah, you look at a tiny compressed zip file on your desktop. It looks like a single icon, taking up almost zero space. It's finite. But when you double-click it, when you unpack it, it explodes and contains the entire internet. The infinite is hiding right there inside the seemingly insignificant finite.
That is a phenomenal modern way to look at it. The story of Vamana teaches a few core lessons. First, it humbles the ego, showing that human material power is nothing compared to the scale of the universe.
Right, Bali thought he owned everything.
Exactly. But crucially for Vibhuti yoga, it shows that the divine deliberately hides in simplicity. The ultimate reality doesn't always announce itself with a thunderclap. Sometimes it looks like a humble dwarf.
Wow.
Bali's surrender is the ultimate example of a human mind finally recognizing that the localized form they thought they were dealing with is actually the container for everything.
Which is an amazing realization, but also a terrifying one. And we see that reaction in Arjuna, the student receiving all this knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita. When he hears about this cosmic scale, he is completely overwhelmed.
Who wouldn't it?
Right. He essentially throws his hands up and says, okay, this concept is way too massive for my brain. I cannot meditate on the entire universe at once. How exactly do I do this? Give me specific examples of where to look.
It's the plea of every student who has just been handed a massive textbook. He needs a bridge between his limited human perception and this boundless cosmic reality.
And Krishna responds by providing what I like to call a cosmic cheat sheet. He details specific vibhutis, which translates to manifestations or glories, that serve as practical meditation targets.
And the list he provides is incredibly poetic, and it sweeps across nature, astronomy, and even human psychology.
It really is awe-inspiring. He says, I am the radiant sun among lights. I am the moon among stars, the mind among the senses, the Himalayas among immovable things.
He covers everything.
He really does. He says he is the shark or makara among fish, the lion among beasts, and spring among the seasons.
And he goes beyond just physical objects, too. He breaks it down to the very foundation of language and human ritual.
Yes. He says he is the single sacred syllable OM among words and the letter A among alphabets. And our sources had a great note on this. It's because the sound A, that open-mouthed ah sound, is foundational.
Right, you need it for almost everything else.
Exactly. It's physically required to be present in the creation of almost all other vocalized sounds. He also claims to be japa, which is the silent internal repetition of a mantra among all sacrifices.
It's a comprehensive list.
But then, after listing all these incredible pinnacle things, Krishna explicitly throws in a caveat. He states that these are just examples. There is no actual end to his manifestations. He casually mentions that he supports the entire universe with just a tiny fraction of his power.
That final caveat is the key to unlocking the whole chapter.
Because it brings up an obvious question. So
Yeah.
what does this all mean for us? Is the text saying the divine is only the shark and completely ignoring the tiny minnow swimming right next to it?
This raises an important question, and it's a very common trap for people reading this text for the first time. The answer is no, absolutely not. Krishna makes it explicitly clear that he is the seed of all beings.
So the minnow is included.
Yes, the minnow is just as much a manifestation of the divine as the great white shark.
Then why highlight the shark? Why single out the grand things?
Because of how the human brain is wired. He highlights the most splendid, powerful, or beautiful things, not to exclude the rest of creation, but to provide symbols or portals for the human mind.
See.
Our intellect naturally gravitates toward grandeur. It is infinitely easier for you or me to feel a sense of profound awe when we are staring up at the mighty Himalayas than when we are looking at a piece of gravel in a parking lot.
That makes total sense.
Krishna is essentially saying, start here. Use the grand things to trigger your sense of awe, and once your mind is trained to see the divine and the majestic, that muscle will get stronger, and you will eventually learn to see it in the mundane.
So it comes back to the training wheels.
Exactly. The sources explain that by giving devotees these grand focal points, this lamp of knowledge, which the text calls Buddha Yoga, the divine effectively destroys the darkness of their ignorance from within.
It's an internal shift.
Right. It shifts their perspective so they stop seeing isolated, disconnected objects and start seeing a unified living system.
So we have the grand cosmic theory. We know the divine is the material cause of everything, the wood of the table. We know it includes the good and the bad. And we have the specific examples, the Vibhutis, to use as portals for our awe.
We have the whole toolkit.
We do. But I want to bring this out of the ancient text and right into the lap of the listener tuning in today. How does this 2,000-year-old framework actually change a random Tuesday afternoon?
Well, if applied genuinely, it fundamentally rewrites your psychological baseline. Practicing Vibhuti Yoga is designed to dissolve two massive, everyday sources of human suffering: the ego, known as ahamkara, and the sense of ownership, known as mamakara.
Let's break that down, because ego is a huge buzzword today. How does looking at the sun or a shark dissolve my ego?
Think about it this way. If you deeply internalize the idea that every bit of intelligence you have, every ounce of creativity, the wealth you built, the beauty you possess, if all of that is actually a manifestation of the divine universe expressing itself through you, you can't arrogantly claim any of it is your own.
Right.
Your intellect, it's borrowed. Your talents, a temporary manifestation of the universal seed. It completely short-circuits human arrogance.
You become a vessel rather than the source. You're just renting the genius.
I love that, renting the genius. And, it also naturally neutralizes our extreme emotional swings toward other people. In this philosophy, those extremes are called raga, which is extreme attachment, and devesha, which is extreme hatred or aversion.
Because you can't fiercely hate someone if you recognize them as fundamentally a divine expression. Let's say it's the guy who aggressively cuts you off in traffic, or a deeply frustrating coworker who takes credit for your work.
We all know one of those.
Right. You might be annoyed, but that deep, venomous hatred can't really survive.
Now, it doesn't mean you don't use your brakes in traffic or set firm boundaries at work. You still navigate the practical world.
Sure.
But the corrosive internal hatred, the kind that ruins your day and raises your blood pressure, vanishes. Because beneath their frustrating behavior, you see the underlying unity. You are both waves in the exact same ocean.
If you actually apply this, it completely shifts your emotional baseline. It replaces modern feelings of isolation, of being a disconnected, lonely gear in a random, meaningless machine with a sense of continuous awe and gratitude.
It's a much better way to live.
It turns an ordinary walk in the park into a living meditation. You aren't just looking at trees or pigeons, you are looking at expressions of the infinite.
The ultimate goal of Vibhuti Yoga is exactly that attitudinal shift. It is the active practice of seeing the unseen through the seen. It's about training your eyes, your mind, your very neurology, so that whatever your sense organs perceive, you immediately recognize the boundless life force sustaining it.
Beautiful.
The world ceases to be a collection of dead objects and becomes a continuous, living interaction with reality itself.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today. And it is a profound mental framework for navigating existence, whether you use it as a spiritual practice or simply as a psychological tool to cultivate awe.
It works on both levels.
It really does.
Oh.
But, as always, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. We spent this whole deep dive talking about moving from ekarupa, seeing the divine in one localized form, to anekarupa, seeing the divine in all the many forms around you.
A whole journey.
Right. But our sources briefly hint at a final mind-bending stage called arupa or nirguna, the formless, attributeless reality.
The ultimate leap of perception.
What if the ultimate shortcut to being truly well-informed about the universe isn't just about seeing the divine in the things around you? What if the final step is realizing that the very consciousness you are using to listen to this deep dive right now is that exact same boundless, formless reality?
That'll keep you up at night.
The canvas, the paint, the frame, and the artist are you. Something for you to explore on your own. Until next time.